Hello again, and a happy Saturday from Metro Manila, the Philippines, Southeastern Asia. Seung-Hui Cho, sorry if I mispronounced his name, was a South Korean born student at Virginia Polytechnic College or University who, sadly enough, very tragically succumbed to the murderous fantasies and temptations he had had probably for years already. For example, because of bullying and loneliness. In April 2007, if I remember correctly, he murdered 32 other people before turning his gun on himself. Yes, 32 other people. He had been born in January 1984, and the date of those murders was April the 16th, 2007. He used two guns, a .22 caliber Walther P22 semi-automatic pistol and a 9mm Glock 19 semi-automatic pistol. His victims were the following ones. A great majority of them were students. Ryan Clark, aged 22, Emily Hilscher, 19, Mainal Panchal, 26, G.V. Loganathan, 53, Jarrett Lane, 22, Brian Bloom, 25, Matthew Gwaltney, 24, Jeremy Herbstreit, 27, Partahi Toruan, 34, Daniel O'Neill, 22, Juan Ortiz, 26, Julia Pride, 23, Walid Shahlan, 32, Jamie Bishop, 35, Lauren McCain, 20, Michael Paul Jr., 23, Maxine Turner, 22, Nicole White, 20, Liviu Librescu, of Romanian origin. He was 76, the oldest victim. Jocelyn Couture Novak, 49, Ross Alamedin, 20, Austin Cloud, 18, Daniel Perez Cueva, 21, Caitlin Hammeran, 19, Rachel Hill, 18, Matthew Laporte, 20, Henry Lee, 20, Erin Peterson, 18, Mary Karen Reed, 19, Rima Samaha, 18, Leslie Sherman, 20, Kevin Granata, 45. In September 1992, aged 8, he immigrated to the United States with both of his parents and his older sister, Sun Kyung Cho. Cho's family lived in Detroit, Michigan before moving to Centerville, an unincorporated town located in western Fairfax County, Virginia, about 40 kilometers west of Washington, D.C. He was a permanent resident of the United States, interestingly enough, not a citizen, despite having lived in the United States at the time of the killings for already over 14 years. Cho's maternal great aunt, Kim Young-soon, described Cho as cold and a cause for family concern already from the age of 8. According to Kim, who only met him twice, Cho was extremely shy and just wouldn't talk at all. Otherwise, he was considered well behaved, readily obeying verbal commands and cues. The aunt said she knew something was wrong after the family's departure for the United States because she heard frequent updates about Cho's older sister, but little news about Cho. During a New Year's telephone call in 2006, Cho's mother told the elderly aunt that Cho might have autism, a developmental disability marked by profound social isolation and delayed speech acquisition. However, no autism diagnosis could be verified with Cho's parents, and no records or other evidence have surfaced to indicate such a diagnosis was made or relied upon by U.S. school authorities. Cho's relatives thought he was mute or even mentally ill. According to Cho's uncle, he didn't say much and didn't mix with other children. He studied at Poplar Tree Elementary School in Chantilly, an unincorporated section of Fairfax County. According to Kim Jong-won, Cho's friend in elementary school for 3 years, Cho finished the school's 3-year program in 1.5 years. He was good at mathematics and English, and teachers pointed to him as an example for other students. Kim met Cho in fifth grade, attending the same classes and riding the school bus together. There were only three Korean students in the school. Back then, he said nobody hated Cho, and he was recognized by friends as a boy of knowledge, a good dresser who was popular with the girls. Cho kept a distance from others because he chose to do so. According to Kim, the only memories he had of Cho were good. Cho attended high schools in Fairfax County, including Stone Middle School, middle and high schools, in Centerville, and Westfield High School in Chantilly. In middle and high school, Cho was teased and picked on for his shyness and unusual speech patterns. In English class at Westfield High School, he looked down and refused to speak when called upon, said Chris David's high school classmate. After one teacher threatened to give him a failing grade for not participating, Cho began reading in a strange, deep voice that sounded like he had something in his mouth. David said, and then cruelly, his fellow students started laughing and pointing and saying, "Go back to China." Never mind the fact that he was a legal resident of the United States and he was from South Korea, not China. Never mind that he could also improve. Another classmate, Stephanie Roberts, did state that there were just some people who were really cruel to him and they would push him down and laughed at him. He didn't speak English very well and they would really make fun of him. Christopher Chomcherd and Carmen Blandon, former classmates of Cho, stated that they heard rumors of a hit list of other students Cho wanted to kill. Blandon stated that she saw the list as a joke at the time. In 2003, Cho graduated from Westfield High School. To address his problems, Cho's parents took him to church. However, he was bullied in his youth group, especially by the rich people's children. In an interview with Newsweek magazine, a pastor at Centerville Korean Presbyterian Church said Cho was an intelligent student who understood the Bible, but he was concerned over Cho's difficulty speaking. Until he saw the video, the murderous suicidal video that Cho sent to NBC, he never saw or heard him complete a sentence. The pastor also recalled that he told Cho's mother that he speculated Cho was a little autistic and he asked her to take him to a hospital, but she declined. Cho was an undergraduate at Virginia Tech majoring in English, although he had told others he was a business major. At the time of the attacks, he was living in Suite 2121 in Harper Hall, a dormitory just west of West Ambler Johnston Hall with 5 roommates. Professor and professional poet Nicky Giovanni, apparently of Italian origin or at least married to someone who taught Cho in a poetry class, stated that she had him removed from her class because she found his behavior threatening. She recalled being bothered by a mean streak and described Cho's writing as intimidating. When informed of the massacre, she remarked, "I knew when it happened that that was probably who it was, and that she would have been shocked if it wasn't or hadn't been." Giovanni insisted that Cho be removed from her class in 2005, about 6 weeks after the semester had started in September, so 1.5 years before that tragic day when Cho murdered 32 other people before turning his gun on himself. Cho had intimidated female students by photographing their legs under their desks and writing obscene, violent poetry. Giovanni said that she was willing to resign before she could continue with him. Giovanni wrote a letter to then department head Lucinda Roy, who removed Cho from her class. Roy alerted student affairs, the dean's office, and the campus office, but each said there was nothing they could do if Cho had made no overt threats against himself or others. Roy described Cho as an intelligent man, but stated that he seemed to be an awkward and very lonely and insecure student who never took off his sunglasses, even indoors. That's already pretty strange, especially if he was walking through dimly lit corridors and sitting in dimly lit auditoriums or lecture rooms. Well, I just wonder if he had also some form of panic anxiety disorder or panic attacks. That would not, I would not be surprised. She described his behavior as at times arrogant and obnoxious. Roy says, or said, she had tried several times to help, or several different ways to help him. Roy would not comment at length on Cho's writings, only saying that they generally seemed very angry. She said that he whispered, took 20 seconds to answer questions, and took cell phone pictures of her in the classroom. After becoming concerned with his behavior and the themes in his writings, Roy started meeting with Cho to work with him one on one. She said she was concerned for her safety when she met him. Roy told her assistant that if she uttered a name of a dead professor, a secret emergency code, the assistant was to call security. After notifying the legal authorities about his behavior, Roy urged Cho to seek counseling, but he never attended. When Virginia Tech creative writing professor Lisa Norris, who taught Cho in both advanced fiction writing and contemporary fiction, inquired about Cho from the school's associate dean for liberal arts and human sciences, Marianne Lewis, she was not told that Cho was suffering from mental health issues, nor about police reports. Norris wrote, "My guess is that either the information was not accessible to her or it was privileged and could not be released to me." Lewis told Professor Norris to recommend that Cho seek counseling at the on campus Cook Counseling Center, which she had already done. Fellow students described Cho as a quiet person who would not respond if someone greeted him. Although I have had that experience with more than one student, that they haven't greeted me back. I mean, sometimes I have been deeply grieved. At times, I have been offended. Sometimes I've just resigned to it. Anyway, I have tried to show a good example by greeting them. Student Julie Poole recalled the first day of a literature class in 2016 when the students introduced themselves one by one. When it was Cho's turn, he did not speak. The professor, she said, looked at the sign-in sheet, and where everyone else had written their names, Cho had written a question mark. We just really knew him as the question mark kid, Poole added. According to a CNN interview with both his roommates, Andy Koch and John Eide, Cho demonstrated repetitive behavior, such as listening repeatedly to Collective Soul's Shine and writing the lyrics, "Teach me how to speak, teach me how to share, teach me where to go," on his dormitory room wall. Andy described two unusual incidents, one in which Cho stood in the doorway of his room late at night taking photographs of him, the second in which he repeatedly placed harassing cell phone calls to Andy as Cho's brother question mark, a name Cho also used when introducing himself to girls with whom he was allegedly obsessed. Koch and Eide searched Cho's belongings and found a pocket knife. They did not find any items that they deemed seriously threatening. In the fall of 2005, so about 1.5 years before the shooting rampage, Cho told Koch and Eide that he had an imaginary girlfriend he called Jelly, a supermodel who lived in outer space who called Cho by the name Spanky. Due to Cho's troubling behaviors during the academic year 2005 to 6, Koch and Eide, who had tried to befriend Cho, gradually stopped talking to him and told their friends, especially female classmates, not to visit their room. Andy Koch and John Eide also, Eide spelled E-I-D-E, Koch spelled K-O-C-H, by the way, also stated that Cho was involved in at least 3 stalking incidents. In other words, secretly, stealthily following someone, 2 of which resulted in verbal warnings by campus police. The first stalking incident occurred on Sunday, November 27th, 2005. According to Koch, after the incident, Cho claimed that he had AI aimed the girl online and found out where she lived. He then went to her dorm room to see if she was cool, but only found promiscuity in her eyes. Heidi added that when Cho visited the girl, he said, "Hi, I'm question mark" to her, which really freaked her out. The girl called campus police. She complained that Cho sent her annoying messages and he had made an unannounced visit. Cho received another verbal warning not to contact the girl again. However, that was it. He was not called, for example, before the discipline officer, something that in retrospect absolutely should have been done, and probably even for a police investigator. The final stalking incident occurred on Tuesday, December 13th, 2005. Cho frightened a friend of Koch by writing on her door board a line from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 2, in which Romeo laments to Juliet, "My name, dear saint, is hateful to myself. Had I it written, I would tear the word." Again, Cho was just verbally warned by the campus police. And again, he stopped contacting the particular girl. The campus police returned to the dorm and escorted Cho to Carilion St. Albans Behavioral Health Center in Radford, Virginia. According to Virginia law, a magistrate has the authority to issue a detention order upon finding that a person is mentally ill and in need of hospitalization or treatment. The magistrate also must find that the person is an imminent danger to himself or others. On December 13th, 2005, Cho was temporarily detained for a physical psychiatric assessment. Virginia Special Court Justice Paul Barnett certified in an order that Cho presented an imminent danger to himself as a result of mental illness and directed that as a court-ordered outpatient he follow all recommended treatments. He was released already on December 14th, 2005. Although some reports stated that Cho was believed to have been taking psychiatric medications for depression, there is no record of this. Virginia state law on mental health disqualifications to firearms purchases, however, is worded slightly differently from the federal statute. So in Virginia, a mental health disqualification addresses only the state criteria, which lists two potential categories that would warrant notification to the state police. Someone who was involuntarily committed or had involuntarily committed or was involuntarily committed or ruled mentally incapacitated. Because Cho was not involuntarily committed and was still legally eligible to buy guns under Virginia law, then he could buy them. A Virginia state official and other law experts have argued that under United States federal law, Justice Barnett's order meant that Cho had been adjudicated as a mental defective and was thus ineligible to purchase firearms under federal law. So on April the 16th, 2007, just 4 days before the 8th anniversary of the Columbine shooting, around 7:15 a.m. local time, Cho allegedly killed two students, Emily J. Hilscher and Ryan C. Stack Clark, on the fourth floor of West Ambler Johnston Hall, a high-rise co-educational dormitory. Within the next 2.5 hours, Cho returned to his room to rearm himself and mailed a package containing pictures, digital video files, and documents to NBC News. At approximately 9:45 a.m., Cho then crossed the campus to Norris Hall, a classroom building on the campus where, in a span of 9 minutes, Cho shot dozens of people, killing 30 of them. As police breached area of the building where Cho attacked the faculty and students, Cho committed suicide in Norris 211 with a gunshot to his head. The police identified Cho by matching the fingerprints on the guns used in the shootings with immigration records. During February and March 2007, Cho began purchasing the weapons that he later used during the killings. And amazingly, he was successful in completing both handgun purchases, even though he failed to disclose on the background questionnaire information about his mental health history, leading to court-ordered outpatient treatment at a mental health facility. And he made two further gun purchases on March the 22nd and 23rd. During the investigation, the police found a note in Cho's room in which he criticized rich kids, debauchery, and deceitful charlatans. In the note, Cho continued by saying that you caused me to do this. Early reports also speculated that Cho was obsessed with fellow student Emily Hilscher, one of his victims, and became enraged after his romantic overtures were rejected. Through ballistics examination, law enforcement investigators determined that Cho used the Glock 19 pistol during the attacks at the West Ambler Johnston dormitory and at Norris Hall on the Virginia Tech campus. Cho's older sister, Sun Kyung Cho, a 2004 graduate of Princeton University who works as a contractor, or at least at the time was working as a contractor for the United States State Department or Department of State, prepared a public statement on her family's behalf, publicly apologizing for her brother's actions and lending prayers to the victims and the families of the wounded and killed victims. This is someone that I grew up with and loved. Now I feel like I didn't know this person, she said in the statement issued through a North Carolina attorney. We never could have envisioned that he was capable of so much violence. Cho's grandfather stated, my grandson Seung-Hui was very shy. I can't believe he did such a thing. Often the truth is, whether negatively or positively, more wondrous or more unbelievable than fiction. During the time period between the two shooting events on April the 16th, 2017, Cho visited a local post office near the Virginia Tech campus where he mailed a parcel to the New York headquarters of NBC News containing video clips, photographs, and a manifesto explaining the reasons for his actions. The package was delayed in its delivery to NBC News because of an incorrect postal code in the address of the parcel. NBC received the package 2 days later on April the 18th, contacting authorities and making the controversial decision to publicize Cho's communications by releasing a small fraction of what it received. Dr. Michael Wellner, who was one of the people reviewing the materials, stated that these videos did not help others to understand Cho. They distorted him. He was meek. He was quiet. This was a PR tape of him trying to turn himself into a Quentin Tarantino character. In one of the videos, Cho said, I didn't have to do this. Well, why did he do it then? I could have left. I could have fled. And then why didn't he seek help from that church which he attended and so forth? There would have been plenty of people who would have wanted to prayerfully and otherwise through counseling, discussion, simple innocent activities help him. And a great deal of love and patience. But no, I will no longer run. It's not for me, for my children, for my brothers and sisters that you fooled. I don't want to repeat the swear word. I did it for them. When the time came, I did it. I had to. But he was contradicting himself. I didn't have to do this and then I had to. No, he didn't. He clearly was deeply troubled inwardly. Would have needed loving, caring, patient, and skillful Christian counseling and psychiatric therapy. And he didn't feel that he was loved. This was one of his way of saying, I've had enough. But the fact is that even if, well, any of you viewers felt that nobody loved you, there is one who does, God. So much that he sent his son Jesus Christ so that none of you would have to turn to either these gross sins or even smaller ones like not forgiving someone, even if you never physically or otherwise hurt him or her. In 2006, Cho wrote a short profanity-laden one-act play entitled Richard McBeef in connection with a class assignment. In a second play, Mr. Brownstone, written by Cho for another class assignment, three 17-year-olds, John, Jane, and Joe, were in a casino where they discussed their deep hatred for Mr. Brownstone and their 45-year mathematics teacher. John won a multi-million dollar jackpot from one of the slot machines, and Mr. Brownstone, amid volleys of profanity, reported to casino officials that the three characters were underage and had picked up the winning ticket. Edward Falco, a playwriting professor at Virginia Tech, has acknowledged that Cho wrote both plays in his class. The plays are under 12 pages long and have several grammatical and typographical errors. Falco believed that Cho was drawn to writing because of his difficulty communicating orally. He said of the plays, "They are not good writing, but at least they are a form of communication." Another professor who taught Cho characterized his work as very adolescent and silly, with attempts at slapstick comedy and elements of violence. Classmates believed the plays were really morbid and grotesque. Okay, I feel very sorry. Sorry for this incident, very sorry for the victims, for Cho himself. I pray that God will comfort all the survivors and all the victims' families.